All right, it's me again. I hope you haven't. I hope you have not had enough of me. But this time I'm not alone. And actually, I want to thank you for your time to join this session. And it's a great pleasure to be joined by this outstanding expert. You know, I'm going to not talk. They are going to talk this time. Like I'll be facilitating. And we are going to be continuing our discussion on how actually. Exploring how veterinarians can help in conserving our species and how our work is very important even this time more than ever. So welcome guys, it's really good to see you. Like I thought you'd be coming in shorts and overall, like, actually I did think we should have come like in our clothes in the field. But it's rare to see us in these jackets. But so let me start with you, Frank. Actually, let me introduce them. So Frank is the CEO of Save the Elephant, and we have Sharon Mulindi, who's actually a veterinary officer with Kenya Wildlife Service, and she works across the free organization Save the Elephant, Gravy Zebra, and Iwaso Lions. And Markus here is the director of the WCN Rhino Recovery Fund. And yeah, so welcome again. So Frank, right away. Every time I think of Save the Elephant, and I actually really think of this huge campaign to fight like the illegal trade of tusks, and so many other work at the community level. And one of the thing that is stuck in my head is the toolkit, where you have so many solutions, including the beehives. But today we are talking about the vet. I just wanted to ask you, why vet, and how are you integrating veterinarians into your work?
Yeah, I think I'm the only non-vet on this panel, so I feel privileged. Well, the reason I'm here is because we had a burning need for a vet in northern Kenya. Save the Elephants, at our core, we're a research organization, and that's how we can achieve impact at scale, because we do the research and then we can share those lessons learned across the continent and with communities across the continent. So there's a lot of research you can do at arm's length and through binoculars and cameras and tracking and so on, but for a lot of work, you need to get up close, and our only interface with the animal itself is through a wildlife vet. You can't fit a tracking collar, you can't take many of the samples we need without actually immobilizing an elephant or being able to diagnose an elephant, as Sharon does at a distance. So we urgently needed that veterinary capacity, but along with Shivani, I'm not sure if Shivani's here, from Iwaso Lions and Gravy Zebra Trust, we realized that we had to get more veterinary capacity. So with many of you here today, we did a campaign to raise some money for a vet in northern Kenya, and we had the great good fortune to land with Sharon, who is you're not the very first, but I think you're definitely the best, and I think you're the second wildlife.
Thank
you. The second female wildlife vet in Kenya, and just doing a really extraordinary job. I suppose collaring, a big part of what we do is tracking elephants and use that tracking data for a whole suite of different purposes. And that was like a major motivator for us, because we cannot do that work without a vet to do those operations, alongside all the work on genetics and microbiome and so on that we also need your help with. But I've spoken. I guess I've represented the elephant side of it. We don't have the zebras and the lions on stage. What else would you say?
So like the scope of veterinary work in northern Kenya is quite broad. We like darting elephants and all these species is quite cool, but we do everything from disease surveillance, we do everything from sampling so that we can secure like a biobank for future research. We also do a lot of collaborative care with the community. I believe veterinary medicine should be inclusive of community work, and given that northern Kenya is such an incredible place where 70% of the wildlife is in community land, We also work at the interface so that we ensure One Health with the communities and people, with the wildlife and with the domestic species and the environment. So it's something that we really embrace in Northern Kenya, doing veterinary work and focusing on the bigger picture, not just darting animals, because that's really cool, but once you do everything and you look at the bigger picture, you realize that veterinary work is not limited to just that clinical aspect. In Northern Kenya, it's such an incredible landscape, so we do so much more than just clinical work.
Sharon, I remember my colleagues met you recently, and they came to me like mouth open. They say like, there is this woman who's actually like working with brave zebra, lions, elephants. They think you are the queen of.
I think she must get that a lot.
Really, they were so much inspired.
Yeah.
But talking of all of these species, Markus, I want to come to rhinos. And many people, when they think of rhino conservation, they do not envision like high-level veterinary interventions. And as I understand, the work of the Rhino Recovery Fund really is like relies a lot on veterinary skills.
No,
so would you please like tell us about that?
So for us to recover rhinos, which are obviously been almost poached to extinction in many places, is you do need to do a lot of translocations, and that requires specialist veterinary input. And that often is something that comes with experience, time, and what you're speaking here about is how do we actually share that experience. Then on top of that, there's a whole issue like with research in elephants. You need to be able to put tracking devices on.
Yeah.
Disease, unfortunately, isn't a big threat for rhinos, but occasionally you have to deal with that. And then what's become really apparent now in particularly lawless areas is the dehorning of rhinos to take the acid away that the illegal criminals are trying to get. And that is now a function that's been largely driven by experienced veterinarians wherever that's been conducted. So yes, as a core functionality for any population recovery is translocation. And in that role, there's going to be some form of animal handling, and you want to be able to have a whole suite of vets who are able to do it at a very good professional level. And that's sort of my passion now as part of just Rhino Recovery Fund is to share this experience that I've been very privileged through my years as a wildlife vet to be able to gain in South Africa, head of South Africa National Parks.
Yeah.
So
And I know like most of the time, like as the director of the Rhino Recovery Fund, sometimes I think like if when I message you, tell me I'm in the field, like I'm here, I'm doing this, so you're transferring the skills. It's beyond giving grants or sitting or signing things. So
absolutely.
yeah. But again, yeah, we are talking about like the role of veterinarians. But I just wanted to imagine, Frank, when we were discussing recently, we started talking about the veterinary work beyond the animal care, and you were really starting to bring some important really elements, and I wanted you to elaborate on that one, the role of veterinarians beyond the animal care.
Yeah, and also what you think a quality of a good veterinarian is.
Yeah,
it's coming.
Well, it's like as you were talking about, Sharon. It's seeing you out in when you're working. You're like a magnet for attention. You know, the crowds quickly build, and you're an ambassador not just for the Kenya Wildlife Service, but you're an ambassador for wildlife in general, and you're the focus for all that attention, and seeing you channel that is wonderful. And I know firsthand how much you inspire people, because my 3 daughters all want to be wildlife vets now.
Oh, yeah.
Because of Sharon. And I think that goes much wider. And so I think that is a big role for wildlife vets. And I'm sure you experience the same thing. In fact,
Yeah.
you know, it is to your point about characteristics, I think humility is a very important thing for a wildlife vet, because they're a bit like helicopter pilots. Once they know this kind of work, they can become very self-assured and think they know everything about everything. And so a little bit of humility.
So I think it's a very good
I
point.
could get lynched up here for saying that.
No, but I think it's a very good, important point, is that because the wildlife vet often is the glue that keeps the animal handling situation together, you do need to be able to be professional, and there's a certain aptitude and attitude that you have to be able to adhere to. And unfortunately, a lot of damage is done when you don't have that right attitude. And I think, Sharon, you'll probably share with me the need for that sort of humility, because you actually play a very key role at messaging what's going on, what's happening with the animal, and carrying that professional message across. And you can actually make or break an operation.
Yeah. I'm just laughing at how Frank said, I'm a magnet for attention and I'm the biggest introvert. But, so yeah, there is, as a wildlife vet, it is my duty to uphold veterinary standards and professionalism, because not only are so many people's focus on you, but you always have to ensure that a lot of these species that you're treating and you're handling, they're the last of their kind. So you have to be professional, you have to be willing to learn, you have to be willing to be adaptable so that you can transfer those skills in the most professional way and ensure the survival of each and every single one of those animals and single one of those populations. So it's always good to just continuously develop yourself and uphold those professional standards.
Yeah, talking of skills, it's really something that I've found that is really crucial to the work that we do. And I know, like, there are moments when I nearly gave up, like, my profession, saying, like, I can't be a good vet, I can't do it. But when I realized, actually, I can be a vet by empowering others, like, that's when I started, like, something to really go out there. And I remember when I came to Marilangwe, and in my aim, I was training, but I was looking for someone. And in this moment, like, Markus and I hooked, and I said, like, Markus, we want to be training people in Rwanda. We want actually to do it at home. And he said, let's do it. And I just wanted to come to you, Markus, and really, the skills, what do you think are the important skills out there, and the importance of networking, and yeah.
So I think I also just want to recognize your drive to build something in Rwanda that's homegrown. And we need a lot more of that, training yourself in Kenya. So I think the important thing with these wildlife interventions, it's high profile, and often there's a stigma that only if you've had a lot of experience can you do it, but where do you get this experience? So I think that's why we found like-minded minds to actually start working together. I've been very privileged to have a lot of experience in this field. Now, the best way I can take that forward, and pay it forward, is working with people like yourselves, and really impart that skill in the most natural, and that's why we started this training course in Rwanda. And I think it's still going to become one of the best venues for young vets to get trained.
And yeah, you are coming very soon.
Yeah, so I have the privilege of firstly being a WCN veterinary scholar, and I am pursuing my master's degree in conservation medicine. And that's something that I really, really wanted to do because, again, being a vet, I keep telling people when you get out of vet school, it's like jumping from the frying pan into the fire.
Yep.
And then there's a bigger fire, and then someone is there fanning the flames.
Yeah.
So it's literally baptism by fire because you don't know what you're doing half the time. You're just praying it goes right. I'm on the phone calling different people like, am I doing the right thing? And that is why all this training and capacity building is so essential to myself and other veterinarians like myself, so that you can be able to gain that confidence, gain those skills, improve continuously, and just continuously build on that capacity and that professionalism. So once I left vet school, I was very privileged to intern with the Kenya Wildlife Service, which was intense. And after I finished that, that's when I came to work in northern Kenya, which is a very interesting landscape to work in. It's not easy. The terrain, I can tell you, is difficult. It's so hot. You're constantly learning about all these different landscapes and species. And the reason why I chose to do conservation medicine is it opens your mind so that you're not just a 2D vet focused on just one thing, but you're a more holistic person, so you're focusing on the bigger aspect of veterinary medicine and its input in conservation. So I am very privileged that I get to continuously build my skills. When you graduate from vet school in Nairobi, they tell you, we've given you the power to read. And I didn't really take that seriously until you come to realize that you have to constantly be up to date with all the papers and everything that's changing in this fast changing world. So I hope to just continuously build on that, and I'll be attending the Rwanda Wildlife Conservation Association training in a few weeks' time. And I hope to network. I hope to network with my colleagues and my peers and get some input and advice on how to do different things. And hopefully I'll be able to just make veterinary practice in northern Kenya much better.
Olivier,
Yeah.
that is the attitude. I was joking when I said humility.
Yeah.
That is the attitude.
Absolutely.
It's that continuous. Just a little anecdote from what I've seen of Sharon and what that attitude translates to in the field. Sharon is out there literally from the before daybreak to after sundown, bumping along these terrible roads, sometimes jumping in all manner of other transport, and she's worked to the bone with this in hot conditions, but when she jumps back in the car, she's not having a sleep or eating some lunch. She's pulling out her laptop and logging on to do her master's course in conservation medicine that she's doing remotely, and then filing her coursework when she gets home at night, and then filing samples. It's absolutely non-stop, and your commitment to that continuous, building of your understanding, that's inspirational, and it's not everywhere in the Kenya Wildlife Service Vet Department. And I think you are you're a standard bearer for that. So,
yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, Frank. I think actually, to be good veterinarians, we really need to understand it's not about one expert. It's working as an ecosystem. And I think, like, when we're discussing the participants of this course, we're saying, like, oh, these people look like they have a good experience. What are they coming to do? But it's about networking. In veterinary medicine, there is no case that is written in a book and you will find it to say, like, oh, yeah, this has happened before. Sometimes you just get these cases that you have never seen before, and you rely on actually connecting, calling. Might call Sharon, hey, have you had this case? What shall we do? We are always like messaging this man, say like, we have this case, what can we do? And this is how we work together, creating a whole ecosystem of people working together. And really this gives me hope. And I told you about my hope, and actually I wanted to bring it to you. They asked me questions. And I wanted to ask you, Frank, like, what is your hope, like, for wildlife conservation, but related to the role of veterinarians? Like,
well, we need more Sharons. That's a big hope. I mean, Sharon is the sole wildlife vet in about 70,000 square miles of terrain across northern Kenya, and is frequently called in to do work that I might think is less of a priority. I'm not going to mention the species because Markus will get upset. But there's a lot of translocations and moving animals onto private ranches and so on, and we're thinking, my God, there's so much need out there, and we need Sharon. We need 5 Sharons across this landscape. But people like yourselves are making that happen. We've now got 1 Sharon, and Sharon is inspiring others to follow her footsteps.
Absolutely.
So I think, it's that inspirational role, both within that tight confines of the world of wildlife vets, but also people just wanting to care about wildlife because they've seen Sharon in action. So I think, if there's one embodiment of hope, I would say it's here.
Sharon, where is your hope? You are hope.
So I really just sat down and thought about it, and something that came up to my head is there's a story by one of my heroes, Wangari Maathai, and she talks about how there's a forest that's burning and everyone's panicking, all the animals are like, what should we do? And there's this little hummingbird who's rushing to fill his beak with water and try and put out the fire, and he keeps doing that. All the animals are like, what are you doing? And the hummingbird says, I'm doing the best I can. So I think that's my hope, that I can continue to do the best I can. I can continue to just have an impact in northern Kenya, because it's a I love my country. I'm very patriotic. And wildlife is our heritage. It is our heritage. We must look after it. And I just want to do my part into maintaining that. And giving back to my community and my country. And I have been inspired by so many women in conservation and female wildlife vets, and I hope that I can also just make that impact to others and lead and make it easier for them to come up and do this profession and do something they love and contribute to the whole conservation of our species.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
That's you, Markus.
So for me, the greatest hope is to be able to work with people like you, Olivier, and you, Sharon, fellow Africans that are really in it not just for one purpose of gaining knowledge or your own profession, but actually in it to save the wildlife for future generations. And us vets are going to play a big role in that. And it's just absolutely wonderful to be amongst people that are going into their roles. I can share experience. I mean, I always say that learning is never an ending thing. It's like climbing a hill that never ends. The steps just get smaller and they get steeper.
Yeah.
So you can never stop learning. And I think sharing experience with enthusiastic young people is probably the most enlightening and happy experience that I can ever come.
Thank you, Markus. You are very generous, and really we are happy to have you. So this really brings us to the end, unfortunately. But I wanted to say, we've learned that veterinary intervention is not only about animal care, it's about safeguarding the whole species, the whole ecosystem, the future of conservation. And your investment is really crucial, and it can make a huge difference. And together we can build a healthier and really like a future for our species and our people. Yeah, thank you so much to our panelists, and thank you so much for your time and your interest in this work. Thank you.
I think there might be some questions.
All right, thanks guys, that was great. I'm going to ask the first question, which is, Sharon, can I come be your assistant in the field?
That's a long queue.
I'll get in line. Okay, so I'm going to stand here awkwardly while I take a few audience questions and pose it to you guys if we have a few minutes. So the first one is for you, Markus, and it's about your opinion on when and when not to interfere on a wildlife situation that involves like a natural health issue, like a broken tooth or a gash that's not caused by humans.
I think that's a good question. I think one of the big differences between working as a clinical vet and working as a wildlife vet is that you actually have to make difficult calls at times, because your concern is not so much always the individual, it's the population that you're working with. Like with those cranes that you had to treat, you needed to work out, okay, how are we going to stop the population from being affected? And you made certain steps to do it. Occasionally, a natural disease or an injury is a reason a predator can actually catch that animal, so you do not intervene with that. So it's being able to have that experience to know when it's critically important to save an individual for genetic or rarity reasons, or when you actually let it be because it's part of a natural system. And disease is a natural predator, so the best thing you can do for wildlife is to create ecosystems that are healthy so that they can be healthy themselves.
Yeah.
Great.
Said. Yep.
Any other contributions from the panelists?
I think just to add on to that, that's why it's so important as a wildlife vet to not just focus on the clinical aspect of it, but to also focus on the epidemiological aspect, on the ecological aspect, and just realize that everything you do is a domino effect into building resilient ecosystems, and hopefully just understanding that every single action taken as a wildlife vet has a bigger impact in a bigger picture.
Yeah. One little thing I wanted to add is, like, it also depends, the decision, we are constantly taking decision, it depends on the situation. And some for the species that are really critically endangered and really nearly extinct, sometimes you end up even intervening beyond what you would do in a natural system just to help every single individual because it matters. So it's about understanding and really evaluating the situation on the ground and taking the right decision for the species.
Great. So we've spoken about the importance of building that expertise locally within Africa, but there's also roles that people outside of the field can play. And so one of these questions is related to that. It's about vet supplies and costs related to it. So I'm not sure who wants to take this. But vet supplies can be very expensive as an investment. So is there further budgetary support you're still seeking for that supply side of the situation?
You've got a clinic.
Absolutely, it's a constant supply, and sometimes, actually, it's even hard. Like there are some of the supplies that are not locally sourced. We have to import things, but definitely it's a constant supply. But one of the biggest things that I really think it's like actually being able to put a vet in a team. You know, like salary for the vets. It's an example, and then like the equipment, basic equipment. I was talking to you, and you were like talking about the difficult conditions, like how sometimes you collect the sample and then it's cooked because it's hot. You don't have the cold chain, and so those are some of the needs that are really needed to make even our work even better, to correct the right information and respond like quickly. Equipment, vehicles, all of those things. Yeah.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe the difficulties keeping a solar fridge running when it's bashing around on those roads.
Yeah.
Question for you, Sharon. What made you decide to become a vet in the first place? And did that happen sort of since childhood or a young age?
Yeah, I always tell people that when I was a kid, so my dad is a biologist and a biology teacher, and he used to take us to boring places like the museum and the national park and the animal orphanage. I'd say boring because kids are going to fun parks and other things at that age. And slowly that just started having an impact on me. And then I think when I was around 7 or 8, I saw a wildlife vet dart out of a helicopter. I was like, I want to do that. So I got into vet school knowing that I want to do wildlife medicine, and basically during my time in vet school, I'd go around KWS bugging all the different vets, like, I want to follow you, I want to do this, I want to do this, and I got annoying to some point, but it worked because I'm here.
But I mean, on that point, it's exactly the same reason I got into veterinary science, and also I bugged every wildlife vet that I could. So it's, again, it's like learning from people that are already experienced and actually being inspired by them, and hopefully that we can all set that example for the next generation.
Yeah.
How about you, Olivier?
Oh, it's actually like it's from a long time ago, having a chance to be out when I was a little kid. I always say we were free range. And one of, there was a day we were playing and I chucked a stone to this bird. It's a wagtail, and it's a totem from a family. And usually they say, if you kill that bird, you will die. If you kill your totem. And that time when the bird fell down, I was so scared. And I went to this wise man and I said, like, am I really going to die? And they say, like, why did you chuck a stone? So that's the first time I practiced as a vet. I was giving it air. I found some water I was putting on it, and the birds like really flew like this, and my eyes were open. I said, like, I'm not going to die. And so I've heard that moment like into my heart, and I wanted to do things that really actually related to life. And when I went to vet school, everything was coming back to me. And meeting the people who were working to save the gorillas, and my eyes were open. I can save wildlife? That's it. That's what I want to do with my life. Like, yeah.
Great. Frank, a question for you. So in your role overseeing the Save the Elephants and the Elephant Crisis Fund, the goal is to see more elephants out there. So do you see a correlating rise in the need for more vet activity as there's potential increased human-elephant conflict?
Yeah, I'd say our goal is numbers as well as habitat as much as numbers. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's difficult to disentangle the various factors, but across northern Kenya, because yes, there are more elephants, but there are more people, and also we have other factors like increased connectivity and cell phone connections. So when people see an elephant that's in trouble, they know about Save the Elephants, and they know about Kenya Wildlife Service, and they know about Sharon. So they're thinking, well, we know there's someone that can help, and so they will get in touch. Are they getting in touch because it's easier for them to do so, or because they've got more ability to awareness of the need to do so? It's hard to say, but certainly we're seeing. I mean, we never had the ability to respond before, but now we're seeing it also. Sharon is kept fully busy, and like I say, we could do with more of her. But yes, you get more problems the more you've got, but you've also when you're able to respond, you see more of the problems as well.
Okay, thanks everybody. I've saved this one for last because it seems pertinent. But are there any sponsorship programs for external individual vets here in the US where people can help? And I'm going to answer that because WCN does have a vet scholarship fund. So people like Sharon are being able to advance in their career as wildlife vets. So if you're interested in supporting folks like Sharon out there, please check it out. Come talk to us at WCN. That's our vet scholarship fund. But I'm not just going to end on that plug. I'm going to ask you guys if you want to add anything to that in terms of like, what else do you need in terms of resources or non-financial support from folks outside of your home?
Well, I can certainly answer that from the Dry Creek Foundation and WCN making quite a bit of money available for this capacity experience sharing training, not only in Rwanda, but also in Zimbabwe, where there's a capture course that Sharon hopefully will join as well next year. And obviously this ability to work in different places and create these little hubs of experienced veterinarians that can start creating a network within Africa, I think is really worth supporting. And I mean, it's the in-field training which I think is the most needed. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I definitely agree too.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all that we have time for. So thanks to our panelists and speakers today.